Hey friends, so today I'm going to tell you about Abimelech. Before I get started, I just want to remind you again, I am a Dwell ambassador, fabulous Christian-based company, and they did offer me a coupon code to share with you. You can get 15% off of your purchase. I will have my exclusive link in the description as well as in my bio. Thank you to Dwell for allowing me to represent your company. With that, let's get back into the word. I am sure that many of you have heard about Gideon, who laid the fleece out and asked God about the dew. Let the dew fall on the fleece, and then again, let the dew not be on the fleece. But have you heard about Gideon's son after Gideon died? Let me continue on my series about Let Me Tell You About. So, Gideon had many sons. We don't know exactly how many he had, but he had at least 71 sons. And the reason we know this is because in Judges chapter 9, we read about one of his sons in particular named Abimelech. Now, Abimelech was a pretty bad dude. He was power hungry, and he didn't care who stood in his way in order to achieve what he wanted. He wanted to be in charge. And so he, first of all, went to all the people and said, there's 71 of us. Do you think we should all have to fight on to who's going to succeed my father? Or do you think I should just take charge? And the people said, we think you should do it. So what did Abimelech do? He murdered the rest of his brothers. 70, it says, that he murdered 70 of his brothers in order to not have any competition. Now, in the word, it does say that there was a small hiccup in Abimelech's plan. One of his brothers, the youngest one actually, was able to escape the carnage of the murders, okay? And because of this, he hid for a few days, and then he came back to the town and he put a curse on the town. Now, I'm not going to read you the full curse, but I will tell you that you can find it in Judges chapter 9, and it starts, hold on, chapter 9, verse 7 through 21, okay? So verse 7 through 21 is this curse that his brother puts on the entire town for deciding to go with Abimelech, even after he murdered his brothers. All right, so he does this curse, and then he leaves. Now, for 3 years, the people follow Abimelech. And then after 3 years, God allows a spirit among the people for them to start to wake up and realize the evil that Abimelech has done and what kind of person that he is. And then there is a particular guy, forgive me on the pronunciation, but it's spelled Gaal, okay? So this guy named Gaal starts to tell people, you know what, this guy is bad news. I think I should take over. So what ensues near the end of chapter 9 is that Gaal and Abimelech are having this civil war of sorts where they're fighting against each other. They're hiding in the grass to try to kill the other person's army and all this back and forth. And finally, the people have enough. They don't want to deal with this anymore. And Abimelech ends up going against people. He goes against the town. He takes these big tree trunks, right? And he puts them up against the hold, against the wall of the city to get up into the city. And he throws fire down into the city, and he ends up killing 1,000 more people by fire from him trying to conquer over Gaal, who realizes that Abimelech isn't doing what he should. It doesn't say it in the text, but right after this, Abimelech goes to another city to try to take over that one as well. But what ends up happening is this woman sees him. She's looking over the city gates, the city walls, and she sees him, and she drops a millstone on his head. He falls to the ground. It says in the word that in chapter 9, verse 53, it says, "But as he approached the entrance to the tower to set it on fire," the second time he wanted to set fire, "a woman dropped an upper millstone on his head and cracked his skull. And then hurriedly he called out to his armor bearer and says, 'Draw your sword and kill me, so they can't say that a woman killed me.'" Well, clearly we all know now, you were killed by a woman. And when the Israelites saw that Abimelech was dead, they all went home. They went home. So his entire army just gave up. They just realized, you know what? We don't want to do this anymore. And they all went home. The final verse says, "And therefore God repaid the wickedness that Abimelech had done by murdering his brothers." That God made all of the men of Shechem, that's the city that Abimelech came from, pay for their wickedness by the curse of the younger brother that had escaped. There's a lot to unpack here. I love how God used the younger brother to foretell what was going to happen to his older brother and to the city at large. The younger brother basically said, this is what's going to happen. If you go with this guy, this is the trouble that you're going to get into. And then at the end of the chapter, it shows the conclusion of that's exactly what happened. I am sure Abimelech thought that he was going to get away literally with murder. I am sure that there were, the passage doesn't say this. This is my hypothesis. But it seemed like Abimelech was just getting more and more sure of himself and more conceited, that he just wanted to do what he wanted to do. And he didn't care what the cost was. He murdered his brothers. Then he murdered 1,000 townfolk. Then he was going to go on to murder more. Not to mention the people he killed during the Civil War. And then finally, God had enough. And he sent a woman to literally drop a rock on his head. Pride cometh before the fall. And instead of, dying in battle, he was afraid of, what will people say? All of a sudden, he was worried about what people will say. So he had his armor bearer kill him instead of dying. And the thing you need to know too is I'm sure I'll say this again, but the pattern in the Bible is women were considered to be property. So if the people would have realized that he was injured in battle from a woman, I'm sure the shame would have been unbearable. I know we all have people in our lives that seem like they can get away with anything at all, but I want you to assure you, impress upon you, that God sees it. And God knows that it happened. And just as he saw what Abimelech did, he sees what the evil is happening on the earth, and he's not ignoring it. He's just waiting for the appropriate time. But God saw, and he's the one that decided when enough was enough.